Ads and Sales, a study of advertising and selling from the standpoint of the new principles of scientific management, by Herbert, Casson. The weak side of advertising. The faults of advertising are the faults of youth. They're not serious or incurable faults. They are the faults of enthusiasm, superficiality, haste, and inexperience. The advertising profession was started a very few years ago, and it was started easy and first. All that the advertising man had to do was to be the barker outside the door of the store. It was his business to give a yell and a hurrah. The public was like a herd of cattle. That was the theory. And they had to be attracted or driven by loud cries. An advertising man was a rooter, a booster, a human signpost. If he made a fuss, he earned a salary, and the salary wasn't very large. Loud talk was his stock in trade. He was given the name of a commodity and told to whoop her up. What's the matter with Smith's $5 suits? They're all right. Naturally, a job like this did not attract many competent men. It fascinated young fellows just out of college, who had not yet become acquainted with their own brains. It suited a certain class of adventurous never-do-wells, who were good mixers and ready talkers. To be glib, that was the main thing. And so the stigma of glibness came to be attached to the advertising profession, discrediting it in the opinion of all solid, silent, responsible men. Much of this juvenility still clings to the advertising business. The rooter and the phrase-maker are still regarded by the public as the typical ad men. Even advertisers do not as a rule regard it necessary for their advertising writers to know what they are talking about. Accurate knowledge is not demanded, and very few ad men have proved themselves worthy of being classed with architects and engineers. There are still hundreds of ad men who dashed into their profession without serving any sort of apprenticeship, without making any study of the methods of manufacturing, or the history of commerce, or the formation of public opinion. Men who never earned, and who could never earn, 2 cents a word as writers, are still writing advertisements for which some merchant is paying $0.50 a word. And artists, whose creations would not sell for 10 cents a dozen in any picture store, are still decorating advertising space that costs $10 a square inch. It is not yet generally acknowledged that the phrase without the fact is mere cheap talk, and that the basic rule of all good advertising is, first the fact, and then the phrase. There are still some writers of advertisements who are ranked high, and who have no merit except the flashy smartness and coining of epigrams. In fact, the impression still prevails that an advertising man is a wordmonger, and nothing more. It is not generally believed that he must be specially trained for his work. It is not believed that he should use scientific methods, or have any comprehensive outlook upon the business world. The natural result is that very few advertisements fit the goods. As Professor Scott showed recently in one of his suggestive books, a piano advertisement will often fit an incubator, or an advertisement of parlour matches will fit breakfast food. Pianos are frequently described as though they had no tone. Ostrich plumes are pictured as though they had no beauty. Shoes are advertised as though they had no comfort. Food is referred to as though it had no taste. Who can remember one clear, distinctive advertisement of pianos or jewellery, or furniture, or chocolate, or underwear, or ready-made clothing? Every brand claims the same things in the same way. Ours is the best. That is the one simple, universal advertisement. There are 8 or 9 silverware companies now reaching out for a national trade, and all but one have the same type of advertisement. They show what appears to be a page out of a trade catalogue, nothing more. This, with prices, constitutes a silverware manufacturer's idea of efficient publicity. Not one, so far, has given us the picture of its designer at work. Not one has told us anything of the fascinating art of the silversmith. Not one has told us any personal story, so that we may feel an intimate acquaintance with his handiwork. There are 6 or 7 underwear makers who are reaching out for a national trade. But what do you know of their goods beyond the mere memorizing of a few trademarks? We hear nothing except the monotonous cry that ours is the best. Not one of these underwear merchants has told us what flesh is, or why it must be clothed, or what a fabric must be that exactly suits the flesh. Not one has explained to us the precise nature of sweat. So when their advertisements appear, they are so similar that they cancel out. One nullifies the other. There are a dozen or more of clothing manufacturers who are reaching out for a national trade, yet what does the average man know of them except, perhaps, their names? Most of these manufacturers prepare a fashion plate advertisement that would be very persuasive to the members of their own families, and forthwith spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in displaying it to the uninterested public. But not one has given us an advertisement that is of the slightest public interest. Not one has given us a photograph of Whitelaw Reid, for instance, appearing at a royal reception in a suit of Altleheimer clothes. Not one has even given us the facts, the very interesting facts, as to the similarity of human bodies. Not one has told us what is the most common structural defect in the bodies that they clothe. Not one has managed to give any sort of human interest to his particular brand of clothes. On the other hand, we have some advertisers who try to escape this monotonous shop talk by turning their advertisements into Punch and Judy shows. Such ads attract attention. Sonny Jim, for example, became nationally known, but who can remember what it is that he was supposed to advertise? There's nothing structural about such advertisements. They make a great blaze while they last, but they are nothing but vaudeville, and the crowd laughs and forgets. A third class of advertisers aim to avoid the scylla and charybdis of shop talk and vaudeville by trying to drill a trademark into the public mind. Sometimes they're brilliantly successful through the choice of a proper symbol. His master's voice, for example, is one of the best of this kind. The blue bell of the Bell telephone system, too, was well chosen. But how can a busy public stop long enough to learn that a red diamond means a certain shoe, a red star, a department store, a red cross, a stove, and a red S, a sewing machine? How can any ordinary housewife, worried by many cares, acquire the differentiating skill of a patent office expert? Plainly, there has come a call for higher quality in advertisements. The men who have goods to sell are now spending more than $2 million a day in advertising those goods, and few of them are getting full value for their money. 4 tons of gold a day. That is the advertising appropriation of the United States. Such a price ought to be able to command the best brains of the human race. Big jobs require big methods. The advertisement that the town grocer writes for his neighbours is not good enough to be shown to the whole nation. The copy that is dashed off by an ambitious sophomore is not good enough for a 90 million audience. Now that we have reached a day when a single magazine is read by 2 or 3 million people, any advertisement in that magazine ought to be prepared as carefully as John J. Johnson prepares a brief, or as David Belasco prepares a play. Why not? The commonplace advertisement, when used in a national campaign, does not pay its cost. That is the fact that even the most lavish spenders are discovering. The public is surfeited with advertisements. It is deafened with brags and boasts. It is a most blasé and sophisticated public. It is not at all like Robinson Crusoe on his desert island, who was so lonely that he read every scrap of paper over and over again. Whoever would attract the attention of this pampered generation must have something special to exhibit. He cannot stun the American public with his 2-page advertisement. He cannot delight it with a dainty booklet. He cannot charm it with his shop talk or his self-praise. He must do something different if he wants it to be noticed and remembered. The advertising profession, therefore, is now at the parting of the ways. It must choose between the easy way and the hard way. It must choose between the broad, smooth path of youth and the rocky, upward path of maturity. Many ad men, no doubt, will remain on the broad way because it is the easiest, and late in life they will discover that it leads to nowhere in particular. The others, probably 1 out of 10, will take the hard path and climb to success. They will evolve from hired writers of phrases to commercial experts. They will lift up their entire profession to a higher level. They will establish such standards as will bar out the fledglings and the amateurs. They will survive and flourish, for the simple reason that they will be the fittest. End of Chapter 6.